welcome to what might feel like the Funeral Channel Network podcast today. But I promise you, this is a truly fascinating deep dive.
It really is, even if it sounds a bit, heavy at first.
Right, exactly. I mean, talking about death care isn't exactly light reading for anyone.
Yeah.
You, the listener, probably aren't sitting around thinking about this stuff on a Tuesday afternoon.
No, nobody really wants to think about it until they absolutely have to.
Yeah, but that's exactly why we're doing this. This topic is universally relevant. And it is absolutely packed with these surprising scientific and cultural shifts that are happening right now.
Completely. The landscape of how we handle all of this is changing so fast.
It is. So today, we are going to rely on a single, really comprehensive source for our deep dive. It's an essay, and it's titled Water Cremation versus Flame Cremation, The Honest Truth.
Which is a great title, honestly.
It is.
Yeah.
And this comes to us from the Funeral Program site. And they are a trusted provider of funeral education and memorial products.
They really know this space inside and out.
They do. And so our mission for this deep dive is to basically move past all those sensationalized headlines you might see. We want to explore the honest truth about how human remains are returned to nature.
Because there's so much misinformation out there.
Oh, a ton. We're going to dissect the physical mechanics, the actual environmental impacts, the emotional weights of these choices, and the future trends.
Right, and the goal is to equip you with clear facts. Because honestly, having to make these kinds of choices when you're in a state of deep grief,
That sounds impossible.
it's one of the hardest things a person can do. Your brain just isn't processing information the same way when you're mourning.
Yeah, you're just overwhelmed. So we want to get this information to you before you ever find yourself sitting in a funeral director's office trying to figure it out.
Exactly. Setting the stage here, we need to look at the history a bit. For decades, traditional flame cremation was basically the primary alternative to cemetery burial.
Right, like if you didn't want to be buried, you chose cremation. That was it.
Pretty much. It became popular because of its affordability and flexibility, but now we are standing on the edge of this major cultural shift, mostly driven by a desire for environmental sustainability.
Yeah, people are asking entirely new questions about their carbon footprint even after they're gone. But before we get into debating which method is better or greener, you really need to understand how both processes physically work.
Right, let's look at the mechanics.
Let's unpack the fire and the water. So starting with the traditional approach, which is flame cremation.
The one most people are at least conceptually familiar with.
Exactly. So to break down the facts from the source, this process uses intense heat and direct flame to reduce the body to bone fragments.
And that's a key distinction right there. Bone fragments, not ash.
Right. I think a lot of people picture like a campfire turning to dust. But the process takes a specific amount of time. The text says it takes exactly 2 to 4 hours.
Which is a pretty wide window when you think about an industrial process.
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 extra hours of intense fire, that's a lot. The essay highlights the specific variables that dictate that timeline. It comes down to body size, the temperature of the chamber, and the type of container used.
Yeah, those containers make a huge difference.
I wouldn't have even thought of that. Like a simple cardboard container versus a heavy polished wooden casket.
Exactly. If a family chooses a thick hardwood casket for a viewing beforehand, and then that goes into the chamber, that dense wood takes a lot of thermal energy and time to break down.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
And so once that 2 to 4 hour process is done, what is the actual result?
Well, like we said, the intense heat leaves behind calcified bone fragments. They're incredibly hot, so they have to be carefully cooled down.
You can't just hand them right back to the family.
Oh, definitely not. Once they are fully cooled, they are processed. They go through a machine that grinds these brittle bone fragments into the recognizable granular ashes that the families actually receive in an urn.
Wow, okay. So the machine creates the ash, not the fire itself.
Precisely. It's a mechanical process at the very end.
That is fascinating. Okay, so keeping that baseline in mind, let's pivot to the innovative approach, the one that's causing all this cultural shifting. The source uses a few different names for it.
The terminology can be a bit confusing for people trying to research it.
It really can. The essay calls it aquamation, alkaline hydrolysis, green cremation, and water cremation.
Right. Alkaline hydrolysis is the scientific and legal term, but the others are sort of more consumer-friendly terms.
Yeah, green cremation definitely sounds better than alkaline hydrolysis. But how does it actually work? Because the process sounds almost sci-fi at first glance.
It does, but it's grounded in very basic chemistry.
So the body is placed inside a sealed, specialized stainless steel chamber. And instead of fire, There's absolutely no flame at all. The chamber is filled with a mixture of water and alkaline chemicals.
Usually potassium hydroxide or sodium hydroxide.
Right, and then moderate heat and pressure are applied over a span of several hours.
And the pressure is important because it stops the water from just boiling away into steam. It allows the liquid to get hot enough to do the work.
Okay, let's unpack this because the essay uses this specific phrase that I love. It says water cremation is designed to, quote, accelerate natural decomposition.
Yes, that is the perfect way to frame it. What's fascinating here is that alkaline hydrolysis isn't some unnatural alien process.
Right.
It is literally a technological acceleration of a completely natural biological timeline.
Like it's a hyper-accelerated version of what happens in nature. If you were buried in the earth without a casket over decades, the soil's moisture and natural alkalinity would break the body down.
Exactly. This machine just creates a highly controlled, pressurized ecosystem that does the exact same chemical breakdown in a few hours instead of a few decades.
That's a great analogy. It's like a highly controlled ecosystem versus the, well, instantaneous destruction of a fire.
Exactly. It strips away the violent combustion element entirely.
Okay, so now that we know how they work mechanically, we have to look at the honest environmental debate here. Because this desire for sustainability is the whole reason people are looking for new options.
It's the driving force of the entire movement right now.
So we really need to rigorously examine the actual environmental footprint of both these methods. Let's start with the carbon footprint of the traditional flame.
It's pretty significant.
Yeah, the essay details some severe environmental costs. It requires massive amounts of energy and, naturally, fossil fuel combustion.
Right, you're running industrial incinerators at, up to 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit. You have to burn a lot of natural gas or propane to maintain that.
Which means direct emissions. The studies in the text show that it releases significant carbon dioxide straight into the atmosphere. But there was this one specific detail that kind of stopped me in my tracks.
The dental fillings.
Yes. The fact that flame cremation may release mercury from dental fillings into the air. Wait, really? Mercury?
It is one of the most overlooked realities of the process. Because, for decades, amalgam fillings were the standard in dentistry.
And they contain mercury.
Exactly. And mercury vaporizes at a much lower temperature than 1,800 degrees. So when those fillings hit the heat of the cremation chamber, the mercury turns into a gas and goes right up the exhaust stack.
Wow. And then it just settles back into the environment. That is, multiply that by millions of cremations a year, and that's a huge environmental issue.
It's a recognized source of heavy metal air pollution.
Okay, so knowing that, the green promise of water cremation sounds incredible. The advocates for aquamation claim it uses substantially less energy overall.
Because you aren't trying to maintain a massive fire.
Right, and it produces far fewer greenhouse gases. There's no smokestack. It's hailed as this major advancement in sustainable care.
On the surface, the direct emissions comparison is a huge win for water cremation.
But wait, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. Based on what the text says, critics point out that this isn't exactly a zero-impact process, right? Like, it's not just a body returning to dust in a pristine forest.
No, absolutely not. And the text is very fair about validating those critics' points.
Yeah, it lists a bunch of things. It still demands electricity to run the machines. It requires the industrial manufacturing of those alkaline chemicals.
And significant water usage, too.
Right. Hundreds of gallons per cycle. Plus, those specialized stainless steel chambers are heavy industrial equipment. They have their own manufacturing footprint.
Exactly. This is where we have to look at the nuance of the word sustainability. Because online debates about the environment tend to get incredibly oversimplified.
People just look at the smokestack and ignore everything else.
Exactly. True sustainability isn't just about the cremation chamber itself. You have to broaden the picture.
Yeah, the text is great about this. It states that we must factor in the entire life cycle. Transportation, like how far is the hearse driving? What are the facility's energy sources?
Right. If the aquamation machine is powered by a local grid that burns coal, it's not a zero-emission process.
Good point. And what about the memorial products? Cemetery maintenance, funeral travel. If 50 people fly across the country for a green cremation, the carbon footprint is massive.
It's a complex web.
It really is. It reminds me it's just as complex as evaluating the supply chain of an electric vehicle.
Oh, that's the perfect analogy.
Right. Because an EV has zero tailpipe emissions, it looks perfectly green on the road. But you have to ask, how was the electricity generated to charge it? How destructive was the lithium mining for the battery?
Exactly. You have to measure the whole system. Flame cremation has direct tailpipe emissions, Water cremation eliminates those, but it still has a significant supply chain footprint.
So it's better, but it's not magic.
Right. It's an improvement, not a perfect erasure of impact.
Okay, so having explored these macro environmental impacts, the supply chains, the emissions, I want to shift the discussion to the micro, the actual tangible remains that are handed back to grieving families.
This is where it gets very personal for people.
It does. And I had a genuine moment of surprise here. The text explicitly states that the ashes from water cremation and the ashes from flame cremation are fundamentally not identical.
Most people assume ash is just ash.
I definitely did. But the visual and tactile details are completely different. The essay explains that traditional flame cremation remains are darker in color and slightly coarser.
Which makes sense. They've been subjected to fire, so there's some carbonization. They feel a bit more like coarse sand.
Yeah. But in contrast, the remains from water cremation are lighter in color, often a bright white. They are softer, finer, and this is a wild part. There's actually a greater quantity of them.
Yes. Because it's a calm, sealed water environment, you don't lose any trace particulate matter up a chimney draft like you do with fire. You retain almost all of the bone mineral.
So you literally get more ashes back.
Usually about 20 to 30% more volume, yes.
Wow. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, why does that actually matter? Like, does a grieving family really care if the ash is a little whiter or finer?
It absolutely matters because it directly impacts their memorialization plans.
Oh, right. What they actually do with the urn.
Exactly. Think about scattering ceremonies. If a family plans to scatter ashes in the wind or over a lake, a finer, lighter powder is going to behave very differently in the air than a coarser, heavier ash.
Oh, wow. Yeah, fine powder might blow back in the wind if you aren't expecting it. That could be really distressing.
Very much so. And the greater volume matters, too. If a family has 3 children who all want to keep a portion of the ashes in keepsake urns, having more volume makes it much easier to divide without feeling like there's nothing left.
That is such a practical, emotional detail. And speaking of the emotional side, let's move into the human element of all this. Because we've looked at the science and the physical ashes, but end-of-life decisions are rarely made purely on logic.
Almost never, honestly.
Right. They are deeply rooted in emotion, in intuition, and heavily in religion.
The essay points out that grief is profoundly personal.
Yes. And the subjectivity of that grief is fascinating. For some people, the idea of fire feels incredibly harsh. It feels violent and unsettling when they're already grieving.
Fire is a destructive force by nature.
Exactly. So for them, water cremation is described as gentler. It feels calmer, more peaceful, more aligned with nature. But the flip side is that the exact opposite is true for others.
Yes, and we have to respect that intuition, too.
Some people find the idea of chemical or water-based decomposition deeply uncomfortable.
Right. They hear words like alkaline solution or chamber, and it feels sterile or industrial to them.
Yeah, they might even think of it as unnatural.
Mm.
Whereas fire, because humanity has used it for thousands of years in rituals, feels familiar. It feels purifying.
Exactly. Families rely heavily on this emotional intuition. It's not just about the data.
It's about what feels right to their heart. And then you add the religious perspective on top of that, which is a massive factor.
Oh, absolutely. Religion shapes death care more than almost anything else.
The source outlines some really interesting historical context here. It reminds us that some major religious groups completely opposed any form of cremation for a very long time.
Particularly in the Abrahamic faiths. Burial was the absolute standard.
Right, because of beliefs about bodily resurrection and showing reverence for the physical body. To burn it was seen as a desecration.
But that has evolved significantly over the last few decades.
It really has. Today, many Christian denominations have accepted traditional flame cremation. The Catholic Church, for instance, allows it now, though they have rules about keeping the ashes together in a sacred place.
Right, the theological stance shifted to accommodate the changing culture.
But here's the fascinating part. While flame cremation is widely accepted now, water cremation remains highly controversial in some of those exact same faith traditions.
Which raises an incredibly important question. Why?
Right. Why is one accepted and the other controversial when they both ultimately yield ashes?
It comes down to the fact that religious acceptance is an evolving landscape. It varies wildly from denomination to denomination, and it almost always lags behind technological innovation.
So the theology is just trying to catch up to the technology.
Exactly. Institutional religions move slowly. They spent a century debating flame cremation before accepting it. Now they have to start the theological debate all over again for alkaline hydrolysis.
Because it's a different mechanism, they have to decide if it still constitutes reverence for the body.
Exactly. Some leaders might feel that washing the sterile effluent into the water system lacks dignity, while others might argue it's a gentler return to creation. The debate is ongoing.
That makes a lot of sense. So moving on to the logistics and the misinformation. If water cremation is gentler, if it's greener, and if a family's religion allows it, why isn't everyone doing it?
That is the big question.
The answer the text gives comes down to real-world barriers, practicalities, cost, and the law. Let's look at the financial and legal reality first. Flame cremation is, generally speaking, cheaper.
Yes, mostly because the infrastructure already exists.
Right, it's highly familiar, and there's a crematorium in almost every town. It's available almost everywhere.
The economies of scale are working in favor of flame cremation.
But the barrier for water cremation is huge. It usually costs more due to limited availability. There just aren't that many facilities that offer it yet.
And the ones that do have to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in this specialized, pressurized stainless steel machinery.
And a lack of providers means there's no competition to drive the price down. But even beyond the cost, there's the legal status.
This is the part that surprises people the most.
Me too. Despite expanding legalization, alkaline hydrolysis is entirely unavailable, like literally illegal in many states and countries.
Yes, it creates massive practical hurdles for interested families.
Like you could do all the research, decide it's perfect for your values, save up the money, and then find out your state legislature just hasn't approved it.
And a lot of that legislative block comes from the ick factor. Lawmakers hear about it, they don't understand the science, they get uncomfortable, and they vote against it.
Which is wild. But that ties directly into the danger of sensationalism, which the text gets really passionate about.
The media plays a huge role here.
A massive role. The source notes that water cremation often generates fear or disgust purely because of sensationalized media headlines.
Emotional marketing is a real problem in this space.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. The way specific phrasing online can actively manipulate families. You see these clickbait articles using words like acid or boiling.
Even though it's an alkaline solution, not acid, and the pressure prevents it from boiling.
Exactly. Or they obsess over the phrase chemical sludge going down the drain.
Which is scientifically inaccurate and incredibly disrespectful to the process.
The text emphasizes that families deserve accurate, balanced information over clickbait. What is actually in that liquid at the end?
It's a completely sterile solution of basic amino acids, sugars, and salts. There is absolutely no human DNA left in it whatsoever.
But sterile amino acid solution doesn't get as many clicks as flushing grandma down the drain.
Exactly. And clearing away this public misunderstanding is exactly why deep dive education is so critical before a crisis hits.
Because if your first exposure to this is a scary headline while you're mourning, you're going to reject it out of fear.
Absolutely. You won't make an informed choice.
So as we try to clear away that misinformation, we can start to look at where the entire funeral industry is actually heading.
It's changing rapidly.
The text talks about the changing landscape of death care and memorialization, largely driven by a generational shift. Younger generations are taking over these planning responsibilities now.
Millennials and Gen Z are bringing very different values to the table.
They really are. They are demanding sustainability, simplicity, and a high degree of personalization. They don't want the cookie-cutter funeral packages of the past.
They want the end of a life to reflect the way that person lived.
Exactly. And the future offerings, according to the text, are going to be incredibly diverse to meet that demand.
Yeah.
It's not just going to be a choice between burial and flame cremation anymore.
The menu is expanding significantly.
The expert predictions in the text say the standard options will include traditional burial, flame cremation, water cremation, and then things like human composting.
Also known as natural organic reduction.
Right, where the body is gently transformed into soil, plus green burials in natural woodlands, and even memorial reef placements in the ocean.
Where the ashes are mixed into concrete to rebuild coral reefs. It's a beautiful concept.
It is, but having all these amazing options also creates a new problem for families. Decision fatigue. When you are emotionally overwhelmed, looking at a menu of 6 radically different options is daunting.
It can absolutely paralyze a family.
To combat this, The text provides 6 essential questions that every family should ask when trying to navigate this. I want to read these out to you, the listener, because they are so practical.
They are a fantastic tool for grounding the conversation.
Okay, question 1. What are our environmental priorities?
Right. Establish that baseline first.
Question 2. What feels emotionally comfortable?
Because the greenest option might feel psychologically wrong for you, and that's okay.
Exactly. Question 3. What aligns with our faith?
A huge deciding factor for millions of people.
Question 4. What is available locally?
The practical reality check.
Question 5. What fits our budget?
Another necessary reality check.
And finally, question 6. Which might be the most important? What would our loved one have wanted?
That's usually the tiebreaker.
It really is.
Yeah.
Like, if you want water cremation for environmental reasons, but it's illegal in your state, question 4 vetoes question 1.
Right.
Or if you want composting, but your mother's strict religious faith forbade it, question 3 overrides your preference. You have to balance all of these variables.
And what's crucial is that there is no perfect score here.
No. But no matter which mechanical method you choose, fire, water, earth, the text stresses the importance of the farewell.
The memorialization remains vital.
Regardless of the method, how we honor these choices after the fact is what really matters. The physical process is just biology. The memorial is for the human heart.
Absolutely.
The text lists all the ways we do this: urn displays, scattering ceremonies, memorial jewelry, which, as we discussed, might look different depending on the ash you receive.
Right. The color and texture play a role there.
Keepsake urns, tree planting, memorial websites, funeral programs, prayer cards, and celebration of life ceremonies. It's about preserving the memory.
Which is exactly why companies like the funeral program site exist. They help facilitate that exact psychological processing through tangible items.
Yes, they give people something beautiful to hold on to. Okay, we've covered a massive amount of ground today. Let's synthesize this deep dive.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. We have this core tension. Flame cremation represents familiarity. It represents wide accessibility and affordability. But it carries a hidden, heavy environmental cost in emissions and heavy metals. And on the other hand, water cremation represents a newer, greener, and often gentler alternative. But it's fighting an uphill battle against high costs, limited availability, legal barriers, and clickbait misinformation.
Either one is universally perfect.
Exactly. Neither is flawless, and crucially, neither defines the love a family feels for the person they've lost. As the text wisely says, what matters most is the meaning behind the farewell.
The intention is what counts.
So to wrap up, I want to pass it to you for a final provocative thought for our listener today. Something to mull over.
Well, I think about it this way. If the funeral industry is rapidly evolving to include human composting, memorial wreaths, and water cremation to reflect our modern values of sustainability and personalization,
Yeah.
how might knowing you have these highly personalized, eco-conscious options change the way you think about and discuss your own mortality today?
Wow, that really flips the script. Knowing you have agency over your final footprint completely changes the conversation from something scary to something empowering.
It really does. You aren't just locked into one traditional path anymore.
I love that. Thank you to everyone listening for joining us on this complex journey today. We really hope this has given you some clarity. Keep questioning, keep learning, and please share this deep dive with someone who appreciates the beautiful complexities of life and end of life. We will see you next time.